Nabokov, auteur de best-sellers de renommée mondiale, se présenta à la télévision comme un pittoresque chasseur de papillons aux facettes multiples. La Russie et l'enfance perdue semblaient enfin surmontées.
I will never go back, for the simple reason that all the Russia I need, after all, is with me, always with me. Her literature, her language, and my own Russian childhood. I will never return, I will never surrender.
Shall I read 3 lines of this Russian version? Of course, incredible as it may seem, perhaps not everybody remembers the way Lolita starts in English. So perhaps I should do the first lines in English. First, Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul, Lolita, the tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap it 3 on the teeth, Lolita. Now comes the rush. Note, by the way, that the first syllable of her name sounds more like an R sound than the O sound. Lolita, свет моей жизни, огонь моих чресел, грех мой, душа моя, Лолита. Кончик языка совершает путь в 3 шажка вниз по небу, чтобы на 3-м толкнуться в зубы, Лолита. These are the index cards of a new novel of mine. Have you given it a title? Well, it's a kind of provisional title. It's called The Texture of Time. I'm not sure I'm going to use it. There's a book called The Nature of Time, which rather interferes with that title. But it's really about the texture of time, of the thing itself, you know. And it's very, very difficult to write. I have to devise an essay, a scholarly-looking essay on time, and then gradually turn it into the story I have in mind. The metaphors start to live. The metaphors gradually turn into the story, because it's very difficult to speak about time without using similes or metaphors. And my purpose is to have those metaphors breed to form a story of their own gradually, and then again to fall apart and to it all end in this rather dry, though serious and well-meant essay on time. I have been perplexed and amused by fabricated notions about so-called great books. That, for instance, Mann's asinine Death in Venice, or Pasternak's melodramatic, vilely written Dr. Zhivago, or Faulkner's Corn-Cobby Chronicles, can be considered masterpieces, or at least what journalists term great books, is to me the sort of absurd delusion as when a hypnotized person makes love to a chair. My greatest masterpieces of 20th century prose are, in this order, Joyce's Ulysses, Kafka's Transformation, Bailey's Petersburg, and the first half of Proust's fairy tale In Search of Lost Time. I have notes here in this copybook about the things I detest. For instance, italicized passages in a novel which are meant to represent the protagonist's cloudbursts of thought. And then background music, canned music, piped-in music, portable music, next-room music, inflected music, concise dictionaries, abridged manuals. journalistic cliches, the moment of truth, the moment of truth. Humility. That's a splendid word.
Il quitte l'Amérique et vivra 17 ans dans un hôtel en Suisse. Et puis un jour...
Montreux, où il vit les 15 dernières années de sa vie au Palace Hotel, au seul motif de se rapprocher de Dmitri, qui vit en Italie. Mais depuis 40 ans, il a gardé sa muse à ses côtés, constante, discrète et tenace, comme au premier jour.
To describe the virtues of Vera Nabokov and to say all the ways she was a great woman is complicated in 1996 because of feminism.
Vera et Vladimir Nabokov passeront les 17 dernières années de leur vie commune dans un hôtel. Deux heureux mortels. En 1925, à Berlin, ils s'étaient promis de rester unis. Et ensemble, ils ont affronté le monde.
Can we start now? God, that's your move.
Ils étaient heureux car ils voulaient l'être.
I'll get somewhere.
Can I get back now?
No.
But there's nothing more to
Oh, yeah.
That conflict.
Come on, it's one of those blitz games, lighting games. Come on, darling, come on. I can make a mistake too. I could take it. Well, that's the beauty of those blitz games. There we are.
Is writing your novels a pleasure or a drudgery?
Pleasure and agony, while composing the book in my mind. Harrowing irritation when struggling with my tools and viscera, the pencil that needs resharpening, the card that has to be rewritten, the bladder that has to be drained, the word that I always misspell and always have to look up. Then the labor of reading the typescript prepared by a secretary, the correction of my major mistakes and her minor ones, transferring corrections to other copies, misplacing pages, trying to remember something that had to be crossed out or inserted, repeating the process when proofreading, unpacking the radiant, beautiful, plump advance copy, opening it and discovering a stupid oversight committed by me, allowed by me to survive. After a month or so, I get used to the book's final stage, to its having been weaned from my brain. I now regard it with a kind of amused tenderness, as a man regards not his son, but rather the young wife of his son.
Does the aristocrat in you despise the fictionist?
Pushkin, professional poet and Russian nobleman, he used to shock the beau monde by declaring that he wrote for his own pleasure, but published for the sake of money. I do likewise, but have never shocked anybody, except perhaps a former publisher of mine who used to counter my indignant requests by saying that I am much too good a writer to need extravagant advances.
Why do you dislike writers who, as you put it, go in for soul-searching in print? Surely you do the same thing yourself, although at one remove behind a sort of thicket hedge of art.
Yes, if you're alluding to Dostoevsky's worst novels, then indeed I dislike intensely the Karamazov brothers and the ghastly crime and punishment rigmarole. No, I do not object to soul-searching and self-revelation, but in those books, the soul and the sins and the sentimentality and the journalese hardly warrant the tedious and muddled search.
Surely great writers have often had strong political or sociological preferences showing in their work. Tolstoy was certainly one. Does the fact that he's got those sort of things in his books make you think any the less of him?
I go by books, not by authors. I consider Anna Karenina the supreme masterpiece of 19th century literature. It is closely followed by the death of Ivan Ilyich. But I detest Resurrection. I detest the Kreutzer Sonata. Tolstoy's publicistic forays are unreadable. War and Peace, though a little too long, is a rollicking historical novel written for that morphic and limp creature known as the general reader, and more specifically for the young. In terms of artistic structure, it does not satisfy me. I derive no pleasure from its cumbersome message, from the didactic interludes, from the artificial coincidences with cool, handsome Prince Andrei turning up to witness this or that historical moment, this or that footnote in the sources used often uncritically by the author.
You refer in your autobiography to your father's study, teaching you to read and recognize authentic poetry. Do you think that there are any authentic poets alive today? And if so, who are they?
I used to have a veritable passion for poetry, English, Russian, and French. That passion started to dwindle around 1940, when I stopped gorging myself on contemporary verse. I know as little about today's poetry as about new music.
Do you think too many people are writing novels?
No, I don't think so. I read quite a number of them every year. Some are quite good, but for some odd reason, what authors and publishers keep sending me is the pseudo-picaresque stuff full of cliché characters and the enlarged pause of dirty words.
You say that you don't care what the critics write about you and your work. Yet you got very angry with Edmund Wilson once for commenting on your work, and you let off some very heavy field guns at him, not to say multiple rockets. So you must have cared.
I never retaliate when my works of art are concerned. Here the arrows of adverse criticism cannot scratch, let alone pierce, the shield of what disappointed archers call my self-assurance. But I do reach for my heaviest dictionary when my scholarship is questioned, as was the case with my old friend Edmund Wilson. And I do get annoyed when people whom I've never met impinge on my privacy with false and vulgar assumptions. As, for example, Mr. Updike, who in an otherwise clever article absurdly suggests that my fictional character, bitchy and lewd Ada, is, I quote, in a dimension or two, Nabokov's wife.
Could you say how important your wife has been to you as a collaborator in your work?
No, I could not.
Is it true in your experience that a first love affair is unmatchable?
I might have said that when I was 16.
You've written of yourself as, I quote, looking out from my present ridge of remote, isolated, almost uninhabited time. Why uninhabited?
Well, for the same reason that a desert island is a more deserving island than one with a footprint initialing its beach. Moreover, uninhabited